Okay, are we ready? Do you need to set up anything?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Judge, do they want me,
Oh, yes. Let me ask you all if you want to give Dana the times if you want to be warned and how much time you do need, by the way. How much time do you think you'll need, Mr. Parnfield?
An hour total.
Okay. You want to split it up in some fashion?
40, 20.
Okay.
I'm
What do you
going
want?
first.
You're doing the 40? What would your warning?
5 minutes is fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Parnfield?
That's fine.
Mr. Fleshman?
5 minutes.
Okay. You think about an hour? Probably, give or take. I'm not
Yeah,
gonna hold
I would
you.
say no greater than an hour.
Okay, so you want a 5-minute warning there?
Yes.
Okay, very good. And if you run over, obviously, if you like, I'm certainly will. Okay, let's bring the jury in.
Jury entering.
All right, good morning again, ladies and gentlemen. Both the state and the defendant have now rested their case. The attorneys will now present their final arguments. Please remember that what the attorneys say is not evidence or your instruction on the law. However, do listen closely to their arguments. They are intended to aid you in understanding the case. Each side will have equal time, but the state is entitled to divide this time between an opening argument and a rebuttal argument after the defense has given its closing argument. Ms. O'Brien, are you prepared? Thank you.
May it please the court, counsel, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. First, let me thank you all for being here for the past 5 days. We are now down to our actual panel of people that will be deliberating in the case. We do sincerely, both sides do appreciate your time and attention. I've watched you all throughout the duration of the trial. I know most of you have been taking copious notes. I know you've been paying attention to everything, and I know it's difficult, especially when we tell you you get a 15-minute break, which turns into a 30, which possibly becomes a 45. But we do appreciate it sincerely. So, closing argument is an opportunity for the state and the defense to tell you what our interpretation of the facts are. Remember, closing argument is not evidence. However, it's kind of a way to guide you. You've had 3.5 days of testimony. So now it's the opportunity for both sides to tell you what we believe that showed. You have your notepads. You are the fact finders in this case. We're just kind of aiding you in taking the facts and applying them to the law. Mr. Parnafiello got up here in opening statement and he told you that this is not a case of self-defense. This is a case of self-offense. And that's exactly what this case is. Now, the state has to prove to you 2 things. 1, a crime was committed. And 2, the defendant is the person who committed that crime. Typically, in cases, we argue about the whodunit. It's different here, right? Because the defense is saying, yes, Delinord Dumercy is the person who shot and killed James Peebles. But what the defense is saying is, it wasn't criminal. He was in self-defense. He was in fear, right? So what we're really arguing about is that first thing, whether a crime was committed. Now, you had your jury instructions, and you're going to have them back with you. But really, essentially, what the defendant is charged with is up on the screen here. And it's first-degree murder, which is premeditated. So we have to prove to you 3 things. 1, James Peebles is dead. That's not in controversy. You can check that off. We've proved that. Defense is basically stipulating he is deceased. Number 2, the death was caused by the criminal act of Delinord Dumercy. And again, we're arguing about the criminal act part. And 3, there was premeditated killing of James D. Peebles. Okay, so premeditation, what does that mean, right? Because we hear this, it's a legal term, it's weird. What it is what it is. Premeditation means a conscious decision to kill. It does not have to be 5 minutes. It does not have to be an hour. It does not have to be, I'm a bank robber and I go and get all my tools to rob this bank and I have this whole thought out plan. It can literally be a second. If you decide in that second to take another person's life, that is a premeditated design to kill. And you'll have the legal instruction, but you don't have to overthink it. A lot of the times in these jury instructions, there's these weird legal terms and you think, oh, this seems really complicated. It's exactly what it sounds like. I decided to kill that person and I did it. Now, how do we know in this particular case that there's premeditation? Well, first and foremost, the text messages, right? You heard a lot about the text messages. I wrote a couple of them down, but you will actually have the printout of the text messages back there. Now, you're going to have every text message for about 3 months from the defendant's phone. Remember, in blue, the defendant speaking. In pink, Miss McCrae. Those are the important ones. The ones that are white are kind of him talking to other people, and there's the yellow one that's that him telling another individual to, get strapped and go and help him kill this guy. But on 11/6/2016, over a month before he kills James Peoples, what does he say? Well, he tells Miss McCrae, say goodbye to that nigga. He won't live long. This is over a month before he shoots and kills James Peoples. 2 days later, I hope that baby dies in your stomach. I'm ready now. Tell him to bring his chrome. Next time I see him, I'll put that bullet through his head. That's exactly a month before he kills James Peoples. That same day, fuck you, ho, I've been waiting for this. On 11/14/2016, a few days later, if I can't have you, no one will. I ain't got anything to lose. I'll end anyone you're with. 11/29/2016. Now this is after he claims that James Peoples shot at him in a park in broad daylight. What's he doing? Still talking to Miss McCrae. What does he tell her? On 12/2/2016, I ain't the only one after that nigga. It's only a matter of time till we find him and his kid. I don't give a fuck, just want to kill your nigga, and then you can call troll all you want. How about you bring that nigga to the park and see if it's game? We out here. It's 6 days before he shoots and kills James Peoples. After, supposedly, James Peoples was shooting at him in a park. 12/4/2016. Found where that nigga lives, a lot of blood tonight. I'll never let you be in any relationship. And then he gives an address. 515 Northeast 3rd Avenue. Pull up so we can do this. The night of the shooting. 12/8/2016. The night that he kills James Peoples. They discuss stuff about the baby, and at 9:07 p.m., 9:07 p.m., about an hour before he kills James Peoples, you have your fuckboy call him with all that fuck shit, and now you want to text all that fuck shit. Look, honey, it's war, none but boo. It's war. All these text messages and the ones you'll get back there are premeditation. He had been thinking about this for months. How else do we know it's premeditation? Well, he buys a gun. When does he buy the gun? He tells you himself on the statement to the police 3 to 4 days prior to when he shoots and kills James Peoples. So maybe around 12/2 when he sent that text message saying he's not the only one after him and that they're going to find him and his kid and that he wants to kill him. Maybe that day is when he bought the gun. That's premeditation. And then if you watch the video, that'll show you premeditation even more. If you look on the TV here, we're going to hook it up so you can watch the video again. And remember, you can watch this as many times as you want. We do have the equipment out here, so we can't send it back with you. But if you want to watch it or rewatch it, just let us know. And we can watch it on the big screen in front of you, or you can watch it on the television, whichever you prefer. But this is State's Exhibit 1B. And if you watch what he does do when he enters that gas station, right there, remember, he's the one in that checkered shirt. He's immediately, you can go ahead and play it, grabbing his backpack and putting his hand in his backpack, looking behind him. Immediately. What he doesn't do at this time, you can pause it, he does not go to anybody and say, someone is after me. Oh my God, someone call 911. He's not calling 911 himself. And he's not hiding behind any of the rows or any of the things that sell the convenience store items. Tries to push out one door, turns right back around, back into the backpack. Now watch what he does do again. So at this point, he knows the victim's outside. He pushes someone else out the way, and he immediately plows through that door. Immediately plows through that door. Drops the backpack on the ground. Now he just has the gun. He slams the door open and immediately shoots James Peoples. Now I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 1D, which is the outside view, which will show you again what he does do in this case. What this defendant does is does not even allow James Peoples to get to the door. He does not even allow James Peoples to hold his hands up. James Peoples' hands are right by his side. You can see them outside of his pockets. He's just walking. He plows through the door, shoots him once. Can you play it again, Mr. Markel? Yes. Thank you. So if you watch, he plows through the door, shoots him once, victim starts running, shoots him again. Right there, Delinord Dumercy is grabbing that victim and trying to shoot him again. But what happens? His gun jams. And you know that because when the gun is recovered, you can see the 2 cartridges that are in the area where it would have been expelled. All of this is premeditation. What he doesn't do, members of the jury, is give James Peoples a chance. What he doesn't do is give James Peoples an opportunity to do anything. He doesn't even give him the opportunity to hold up his hands. He doesn't even give him the opportunity to open the door. He shoots him immediately before James Peoples even has the opportunity to say anything to him. That's not self-defense. That's murder. Defense is going to get up here and they're going to talk all about how he was scared and he was fearful, and that's why it's self-defense, right? Because he himself had a reasonable fear that James Peoples was going to kill him. But members of the jury, all of the evidence shows that what the defendant did that night was murder. It was not self-defense. James Peoples was an unarmed person walking into a convenience store. He didn't pull anything out of his pockets. He didn't have a gun on him. He didn't even have anything. What did he have? A charger in his pants. The evidence shows that the defendant is the aggressor in this case, and you can see it through the text messages. You can see it through the text messages that he is sending to his pregnant ex-girlfriend, telling her that he wants to put a bullet through James Peoples' head. The testimony, Miss McCrae, what did she tell you? She was getting these text messages, and she didn't even tell James Peoples about them until a little bit before he gets murdered. He didn't even know about the threats that were happening in November at all, because she didn't tell him. The evidence shows that James Peoples was unarmed. He didn't have a knife, he didn't have a gun, he didn't have a bat, he didn't have anything. He had a wallet and a phone charger. He had nothing on his person to allow this defendant to take a gun and shoot him in self-defense. Let's talk about what his statement is. First and foremost, let's talk about what his statement is on the stand, okay? So yesterday he testified, and his statement was basically a narrative of what he believes you'd want to hear. He got up here, and before he's asked any questions, he draws out a picture. He's not asked any questions by the defense. He had that picture in his mind. He knew exactly what he wanted to do when he got up here. And that's to try to make you believe him. But you are to evaluate his credibility and his bias. And the most interested person in the outcome of this case is that man. Because he certainly does not want to go to prison or be convicted of murder. And you can consider all of that. What I ask that you also consider is how he acted on direct as opposed to cross-examination by Mr. Parnafiello. On direct examination, again, he would go on these rambling tangents of, any parent and a child, but he's like telling a story, rejecting narrative. He's not really answering the question. He's trying to make you like him. And then when Mr. Parnafiello gets up here, he kind of has to tell him once or twice, listen, just answer my question yes or no. It's a yes or no question. He doesn't like that, right? He wants to tell his story. Mr. Parnafiello asks him a question, he deflects, he diverts. He's going all different ways. Because he does not want to make himself look bad. He wants to tell you what he thinks you want to hear and what he wants to say and not admit any fault at all. What did he say? He claims the law enforcement officers berated him for an hour and a half to get him to finally say what they wanted to hear. You have the times. It's a 30-minute interview. From the Miranda reading till the very end. It's 30 minutes. They're not threatening him. They're not yelling at him. They're talking to him. Are they challenging him? Certainly. That's what you do as a good detective. You challenge somebody. You wanted him hurt. He's sleeping with the mother of your unborn child. So, he also says on the stand that he is terrified, so terrified that he cut everyone else off in his life. And he's hiding, right? But he's so terrified of James Peoples, yet he is consistently, almost on a daily basis, texting Darnisha, who is in a relationship with James Peoples, threats to him. Threats to kill him. Threats to cause him bodily harm. He's supposedly terrified of this guy and his gang members on 9th Street, that he's hiding, but he's still sending threatening texts to a person who is in a relationship with that person that he's terrified of. That does not make sense. He also claims that he's terrified, yet at 10 o'clock at night on December 8th, 2016, he's riding his bicycle right by her house. At the park, right by where she lives. And you know that because when the detectives challenge him he's like, well, I was just riding my bike in the park. I'm just in the park. You're terrified that someone is going to kill you, but at 10 o'clock at night, you're on a bicycle with your gun in a backpack right by the baby mama's house who is dating the guy that you're petrified of? That doesn't make any sense. He claims he shot at the park on November 28th, 2016, right? But he doesn't call 911. And we know that Detective Leon went through the reports to determine whether or not there were any reported shots or fireworks in that area around that time, that date. Nothing. Okay? It is a mostly residential area. Not one person called in gunfire, fireworks, anything like that. Because it didn't happen. He supposedly wants you to believe that on November 28th he was shot at by James Peoples, but he doesn't text anyone about it. You have the text messages. Doesn't text Darnisha about it at all. Hey, your new boyfriend is really dangerous and he's trying to kill me. He shot at me at the park. You should be worried about him. Nothing. Nothing at all. Supposedly he does tell his friend, his manager at the store, right? But what did that guy say to you? Well, his testimony is a direct controversy of the defendant's testimony. Because the defendant says he shot at me during the daytime. I remember it was during the daytime. I saw a dreadhead. I didn't know who he was at the time. Later I found out, but it was daytime. I asked the manager on the stand, Mr. Neves, multiple times. He says it was at night. I said, did you get the call at night? Yes, I got the call at night around 10:30 or 11. And he told you it happened at night? Yes, he said specifically it happened at night because he couldn't see who it was. He said it was at night. Those two stories don't even line up. The defense's own witness story doesn't line up with the defendant's story. That's something you need to take into consideration. He also claims that he didn't call the police because he was terrified of people's friends or his gang. But he's, again, still sending those threatening texts that he wants to kill him. Why would he not think that that would make his friends mad? If he's so terrified of James Peoples' gang, why is he threatening James Peoples? Through the girlfriend, over and over and over and over and over. You think the gang's only going to be upset if you report him to the police? Well, I would argue to you that reporting him to the police with a case that doesn't have a whole lot of evidence, because he's the only supposed witness, would make a gang less mad than possibly threatening to kill one of their friends. These things just don't add up. There's inconsistencies between his statement and what makes sense in reality. The defendant's statement on tape with the law enforcement officers is important, though. Because if you listen to it, I know you all were listening to it intently, and you hear it, you learn that, yes, it's only a 30-minute conversation with law enforcement. It's not an hour and a half, and then he finally breaks. What does he say? He said he wanted Peoples dead. He said he was mad. He said he was pissed off. He said he felt relief when Peoples was dead. One of the officers says, you wanted to kill him, correct? Yes. One of the other officers, you killed a man last night, is what you did. And that's something you're going to have to face. You're going to have to own up to that. You made some really poor decisions last night. I did. You were mad. You said, fuck it, I'm going to take you out, and that's all you did, right or wrong. The defendant says, you're right. I was pissed. These are his quotes. You're right. I was mad. When the officer says, your intentions were to kill him, is that correct? The defendant says, correct. Officer, you wanted to kill him, correct? Yes. Members of the jury, he wanted James Peoples dead. And he wanted James Peoples dead because James Peoples got in between him and Darnisha McCray, a woman who he had been with for 5 years, a woman who he had a baby on the way with, a woman who allowed James Peoples to get in the middle of their relationship and broke them up. He even tells the officers, well, officers say, why did you break up? Because of him. This person has a weapon. I'd argue to you, even if a person was charging me that I didn't know, or if I knew them and they had beef with me and I was worried that they were going to hurt me and they're running at me in an aggressive manner and I get out a gun and shoot them, that might be a reasonable fear. But shooting an unarmed man who is walking into a gas station, that is not a reasonable fear. None of that stuff happened. The guy didn't have a gun. He didn't have a knife. He didn't have a baseball bat. He had nothing but a phone charger and a wallet. And he got shot twice. Once in the front, once in the back, and he tried to kill him even more. Mr. Parnafiello told you in opening statement that this is kind of a different type of case. Like, some cases are very complicated. Some cases you have fingerprints, you have DNA, you have no surveillance video. This is a little different, right? Because you actually get to see the last moments of Jimmy Peoples' life on video. You saw it on a body cam video when they're trying to do medical intervention and save his life. And you see right here him being attacked by that man. It's not an overly complicated case. It's an important case, 100%. It's important to the defense, but it is really important to the state as well. And it is important to the people of the state of Florida. And when you all signed up as jurors, and not that you were really signed up, it was not really voluntary, but when you all took your oaths, you swore an oath. You swore that you would uphold the law. And what that means is you are the fact finders. So your job is to decide whether we prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt. Reasonable is not forced, imaginative, or speculative. A reasonable doubt kind of just basically means what you think it means. You use your common sense. What makes sense to you? Is it reasonable in this case that Delinord Dumercy was in fear of James Peoples to the point where it was justified that he'd shoot him, not once, but twice, and try to shoot him a third and maybe even a fourth time? No. Look at the video. He's just standing there. He's just walking. His hands are out of his pockets. He's not being aggressive at all. He doesn't even say anything. And he gets shot over and over. It's not reasonable fear if you shoot somebody in the back as they're running away. That's not self-defense. It's not self-defense to shoot an unarmed man walking into a gas. His hands aren't even up. Now, one of the things that you'll learn is you get a verdict form. And the judge kind of explained it to you, but I want to show it to you because some of our verdict forms are a little bit more complicated than others. And this one would be one of those. So your verdict form has actually 2 pages. So you can see it here. There's 2 pages because the judge explained to you there are primary crimes, and that's what the state charged in this case, right? The first charge is first-degree murder. That's what's charged in the indictment. There are lesser included offenses, which basically means if we didn't prove that charge to you, you go down kind of like the ladders of a rung. If you believe he didn't have a premeditated design to kill, then you go to second-degree murder. And Mr. Parnafiello will discuss lessers with you in second close, but I just wanted to show you this verdict form so you understand it. You are, and required to, convict the defendant for the highest offense that the state proved. That, in this case, members of the jury, is first-degree murder, right? Because he was certainly premeditated. It's all over the place. So when you find him guilty of that, you simply check this box, and you do not have to do anything else besides have the foreman sign and date right here. If, for some reason, you believe that this was not premeditated and you wish to look at the lesser included crimes, you then would have to decide whether the state proved second-degree murder, and you would have to answer the questions. But you do not have to even go to number 2 or here, because in this particular case, the state did prove to you first-degree murder. Members of the jury, on December 8th, 2016, that defendant killed James Peoples in cold blood. You are not permitted to go back there and say, the state proved this case to me. I know it. They've met their burden beyond a reasonable doubt, but I would have liked to know the answer to like a couple of these questions. You are always going to have questions that are unanswered as a juror, right? Because you never get to know everything. You're never going to know everything. Nobody's probably ever going to know everything. But the question is, do your questions or concerns rise to the level of a reasonable doubt? Not all doubt, not any doubt, reasonable. I ask that you don't find the defendant not guilty because you have some unanswered questions. I ask that you don't find the defendant not guilty because you heard a lot of bad stuff about the victim and you don't really like him. Whether or not you like him, whether or not he was a good guy, he didn't deserve this. He didn't deserve this at all. He didn't deserve to be shot, and he didn't deserve to be murdered that night. And I ask that you don't find the defendant not guilty because he's young. You heard how old he is. He's a young guy. But he made these decisions. And he chose on December 8th, 2016, to murder James Peoples. He shot him once. He shot him again as James Peoples ran away from him. He shot him in the back. And as James Peoples laid on the ground, he tried to shoot him a third time. He didn't want a fair fight. The defendant did not want a fair fight that night. He said it's war. An hour before he murdered James Peoples, he wanted a fight that he was sure to win. And he made that decision when he was in the gas station that night to pull out that gun and immediately shoot him without any provocation at all whatsoever. On December 8th, 2016, Delinord Dumercy, that defendant, executed James Peoples. And for that, I ask that you find him guilty, as he is, of first-degree premeditated murder. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glenn. Mr. Glenn.